Hi guys, I'm Will, lead coach here at Cedardale Communications. And today we're going to talk about identifying a toxic workplace. Now this is particularly an interesting subject because currently we're seeing a lot of changes out there. For a while, a lot of people have been working from home. A lot of people have been cut off from their office circles or basically having to keep in touch mostly online. And it's not just the office, it's life as a whole has been basically put on pause for a lot of people. Now, some people have met that with reluctance, other people have found an opportunity to rediscover things in their lives, even in their professional careers, that they seem to have more time for, or they realize there are better things out there that they could be doing with their own time. And of course, it's not all parallel to who your employer is, but a lot of times it gives us a chance to look at what we've left behind and what we might be going back to. Now, a toxic workplace, before I help in identifying a lot of this, a toxic workplace is not just a simple thing where you just slap a label onto. Now, you may have people close to you, or you yourself may have been in one of these workplaces or are there now. What we need to realize with these circumstances is there's not really much you can do when it comes to a toxic workplace. All you can do in life is control how you feel, whether or not you belong, and what steps you can do for your own well-being. Toxic workplaces can lead to a lot of post-traumatic stress and can cause a lot of mental illnesses or even aggravate them. Now, one of the major things that we look at in a workplace that you can, when you pair all of these 7 items together, you can really identify this as a place that has a lot of, like a very thick air, something that really spreads and really shapes your corporate culture. And it's something that, as well as an employer, is something you want to avoid and do your best really to treat your people like people. Now, the number one thing I would say, or really not any specific rank, but the first thing I'll say is in a toxic workplace, people will directly and indirectly hold you back. Now, what I mean by this is that you may be in certain situations where you may be the new person or you've been there for a while, and someone might come up to you and say, "You work a little too hard. You're making us look bad." Now, when you're hearing these kinds of things, when you hear like someone working too hard not being something encouraging, there's more opportunity as well where your contributions will be ignored and you will be looked over for promotion. You realize that there's something else within the environment that's not merit-based. And when you're in an opportunity or where you are in an environment that's not merit-based, you know that there's going to be a game you have to play to situate yourself. You may also hear from time to time you're overqualified for this kind of job, or even, I guess, undercover threats. So something kind of like, if you do as I say, things will go much better for you. Now, nobody wants to hear that in a workplace. It gives you the chills. Another thing is an endless array of meetings. Now, I'm not saying meetings as a whole is something negative. Meetings have to have a purpose, an agenda, a communication, some sort of goal development. But when you have an endless array of meetings that seem to be always the same thing, you've got a team meeting one week, the next week you've got a division meeting, and you're talking about exactly the same thing. Now, when you have a good meeting, you usually have an agenda. You raise and address certain issues with your staff and allow people a chance to exchange. Concerns are shared and then decisions are made around these concerns. And then it really means things are going to start happening. Things are going to start moving. Now, when you're in a meeting after meeting kind of environment, either the same issues keep coming up, there are disagreements, new agendas, and really nothing ever gets done. It seems to be you're always at the same spot, or even worse, behind closed doors, they're playing a blame game. You may end up on the end of the blame game. But either way, when you're playing at this kind of thing of assigning, pin the tail, pin the blame on someone, you're really not addressing an issue. You're not fixing anything. It's not so much about who's responsible for something. It's more like, how do we get past it? How do we find something that we can achieve something better as a team? Another thing I would say, the third point, would be inappropriate behavior. Now, you have a lot of workplaces these days that talk the talk. Unfortunately, there's not the walk part, walk the talk. There's zero tolerance policies for abuse, for behavior, codes of conduct. And you notice around you that there's so many people or some people at the very least, that the code doesn't seem to apply to them. The zero tolerance policy, no problem. That's just classic John. That's just the way he is. And when you encourage this kind of environment, when you don't have like a talk with that person, no matter if they're management or they're just, a worker of any kind, once you see that this person is allowed to behave a certain way, it affects the corporate culture, and it also makes people kind of step back a bit. And when you get people that are reluctant, people that step back, people that don't feel comfortable, they won't be sharing their best ideas. They'll be afraid also classic John might take those ideas and, pass them on as his. Now, another common thing you'll find is when the environment is so heavy, you'll find there are a lot of people who will always come up and say, this is not in my job description. So you go up to someone, you ask them, oh, by the way, would you know, or would you be able to help out with this, or could you help me with this project? Or even as a manager, you might say, yeah, you know what, John, we'd like you to go ahead and do this. Say, well, it's not in my job description. It's not my problem. In a positive work environment, John would know, you know what, they came to me with this opportunity, they see something in me and they're trusting me with it, and it's a chance to shine or a chance to help the team. That's when you've got high engagement. And when you've got opportunities that come up of, John, can you do this? And now, at that point, you've got a problem. And it might not necessarily just be John, especially when other people within the organization, the corporation, might feel the same way. And I'd say as well, there's experience in a workplace is value, but some workplaces, this would be more of workplaces that collect people with degrees. Now, what I mean by that is the fact that they're able to hire people with master's degrees, PhDs, it gives them a chance to look at, we're an employer and we have like this really high bar of people we hire. Now, a lot of times the education people have is more of a mental challenge that they gave to themselves and a commitment that they were able to achieve a very prestigious degree. However, the academic world doesn't always translate into your workplace. It's when you go and you say, my role in this environment is to be a resource. Now, your role actually in an environment is to do your job and to be able to help out the team in any way needed. A lot of organizations will have in their job descriptions and other duties as required. Now, when you get these other duties as required, it's usually an opportunity to step up, an opportunity to shine and to show, Jesus, look, this is what I can do. I'm a contributor. I'm a team builder. Oh, I'm going to motivate everything. Now, when you get to that point of the more kind of reluctance and the stepping back, it's similar to the not in my job description kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to risk it. I'm just here because I'm a resource. This is what you have on paper, and come to get me when that's all that's necessary. Another thing you'll find in toxic environments is kind of like the high school environment, a lot of gossip. When you have a lot of gossip, it usually means people have a lot of time on their hands and people are neglecting other things. If you've got time to talk about colleagues and their lives, the first thing I always like to say to myself is I know someone professionally to some extent, and I don't know their life personally and privately. Now, that's their own matter, and I don't have any place to judge, whether it's in my work relationships or also in my personal relationships. I think everyone has their own track, everyone has their way of doing things, and there's always a reason for being a certain way. You don't know what kind of situation the person has at home, if they're taking care of disabled children or family members. You don't know if they're going through a difficult divorce or whatever the reason may be. Some people have families in very war-torn places, and especially right now, where we are in our time, things are very fragile. And we need to have some consideration, some respect, and as well some compassion for others who may be going through challenging times. You may want to step up to a coworker and say, well, if you need any help, I'm right here. I mean, even just saying that helps a lot. Now, also make sure you're not taking on too much yourself. But always approach other coworkers with a sense of compassion and respect their privacy. There's a lot of work environments where they talk about people, they talk about, maybe this person and that person are having a relationship, and they start making up this humongous story. It can affect their relationship outside of the workplace if maybe one day you're walking around with your girlfriend or your wife, and then they kind of look and there's this kind of strange vibe, and then that carries on to the office. It's nobody's business. What you do with your own personal life, you're not being paid for, and it is your life. Ensure it's always private. Don't bring your issues, unless you've got also someone who's very proud of having bought a house and tells you, and you go like, well, that's great, good for you. You do what you can with the information that's volunteered to you by the person, but it's never right to talk about someone behind their back. And it's kind of strange to say this, but where we are in our lives, a lot of adults still do that, and it's something we're taught as kids. You got to respect people, and if you're going to talk about them, talk to them, not about them. It's gossip is also a huge time waster for the employer. Now, if it's someone in management, if it's someone who's not in management, it's always a time waster, and it's something that you want to address, and you want to make sure there's always respect in the workplace for others, and there's a place for others always. The last one, I would say, the key one, is a place where there's a lot of steamrolling, grabbing the glory, and maybe even watch that bus that you're being thrown over or under roll over you. Now, it's really hard to say, but there are some places where there's a lot of that. You may be working as part of a team, and then only one person in that team or some people in the team get the glory. You don't even get a mention. Now, it's very important in these types of situations not to bring it up, because if you bring it up, it's seen even worse of not being a team player. But this kind of idea of giving the reward to someone, it definitely does show favoritism towards an individual person. Maybe it's been two directors working closely, and one is thanking the other director for their work. The other director may not have, or the other person may not have within them the idea of saying, well, you know what, I didn't do this all on my own. Thank you to everyone else who was part of this project. Something like that always helps. It's within you, when it's being directed to you, to try to make that better. Amplify the good. Amplify the message. Otherwise, you're really excluding people, and creating that division also takes people away from being really engaged in what they're doing and how they're collaborating and how they can bring the best to the project you're working in. It goes back again to creating a situation where John will go, that's not my job, you'll have to talk to the other guy. Because you've already said thank you to the other guy, but you, John, we forgot about you, we don't need you. Now, when an environment is very toxic, these things are amplified. They may seem like nothing in just a quick kind of chat. Now, when you're living it and it's proportional, it starts really eating at you, and every little thing becomes huge. And it's important always to treat everyone you work with, whether you're a manager, whether you're not a manager, whether you're an executive, you have to remember everyone you work with is human. Whether you're a results-based organization, you're an academic organization, you're a for-profit, whatever it is, always remember to treat people with respect, dignity, and like human beings, and you'll always get the best result out of them. I always find it funny how a lot of organizations are always looking at how to do things better, how to get more employee engagement, how to get employees further motivated, and they never talk to the employees. Managers themselves will never get the best results out of employees if they don't realize that the employees are there, they're engaged, they want to be asked, and they want to contribute. Now, if you're in an environment of this sort, the best thing I could suggest to you is start looking for something else. In the long run, your door might get kicked in, and it'll be a very rude awakening. I've had circumstances with clients and friends in my life that have gone through these kinds of environments, and myself too. I've had a couple of work environments that were pretty toxic, and I got out just in time. If you do have any other questions on how to navigate, or even on how to build a job search or look at your skills, feel free to get in touch with us. You can reach us at info@cedardaleCommunications.com, and it usually takes us anywhere between 48 hours to get back to you with a response and try to look for something that we can book a spot. And we're always happy to have as well a free consultation with you if you'd like to have a quick chat to see what it is that we can do for you and how we can get you on track. The most important thing is remember that you always have just this one chance to make a life. And the most important thing is get the most joy out of it. Get the most out of it that will make you smile, will make you laugh, will make you want to get up, and will make you want to work towards your purpose. That's the most beautiful thing in life. Now, again, you can get in touch with us and have yourself a great day. Thanks for tuning in.